Hey, what's happening guys? I'm ika.himee and welcome back to my channel, and today I am going to be doing a line art tutorial by request. Some people have asked me how it is that I get that printed manga look out of my line art, and while I don't really know for sure, I'm going to try and teach you what it is that I do, and perhaps you can glean some information out of that. As you can see here, I already have something on the screen that has ink on it. This was a raffle prize for someone that I am currently working on, so two birds, one stone. I will be inking this while teaching you guys how I ink. Now the main part of this is already done, as you can see, and the main part I mean by the part that's going to have the most focus put on it, which would be the face, specifically the eyes, because I am an anime artist, so the eyes are kind of where the focal point is for the most part. I will not be redoing the eyes because I actually like how they came out, but I will kind of show you guys how I do them. As you can see here, I do not use one thick broad line. For example, I do not do something like this. I do not kind of do one thick line, one thick solid line, and do eyes underneath it. If your style consists of using thick bold lines like this, that is totally fine. You are more than welcome to do so, but that is just not something that I want from my art. So that's not how I would do it, so that's not what I'm going to be teaching you today. And what I do is basically a bit more time consuming, but I feel like it produces a far more desirable result. I've pretty much inked eyes like this, I mean, practically since the beginning. I just kind of found the one way that I like to ink eyes, and I just went with it. So here we see like each of these lines here, and they're kind of, you can see these little streaks that aren't filled in with color. That's because each of these is an individual line that is used to build up this thick line here, and you can see in the end these little bits here where it just kind of feathers out. I think that it gives a more eyelashy look, and it just looks more appealing in my opinion. So basically what I would do would be something like this, where it would just kind of be a series of sketchy lines following my sketch, coming around and, just putting eyelashes on, and then, the lower lash line is done the exact same way, just a bit shorter, and eyelashes, and the eye. Now how I do the eye, I also don't do a solid thick line. As you can see, there are spaces where there's not line art. That's just, again, that's an aesthetic preference for me. If you don't like that, you do not have to include that in your line art, but I basically follow the same technique of using sketchy lines. I find that when I focus too hard on trying to get solid lines on my on the irises, it just took a really long time to get something that I liked, and I would have to rely on stabilizers too much, and I felt like wasn't something that was aesthetically pleasing for how much time it took to do. It just felt a little too artificial, a little too digital in my opinion. If that's what you like, you are more than welcome to do that. Obviously, that's just not what I like. So I follow the same kind of sketchy line technique for all of that stuff in the eye department, as well as in my eyebrow section, in the beginning part of the eyebrow. I do like to fade them out. I don't really like the pencil thin eyebrow. I just feel like it lacks a bit of character and a bit of realism, and so I prefer to stay away from just a solid line like that, and instead try to add a bit more dimension to it by kind of feathering out the front eyebrow, and then I taper it back into one solid line there, and that is pretty much all I do for that. Everything else is kind of just regular lines. There's not really anything special about it. In fact, my line art is extremely messy, and the fact that people really like my line art is impressive to me, because it's a mess if you zoom in on it. But a way that I kind of get a bit more dimension, as you can see with the mouth here, is I have put more emphasis on the corner of the mouth, where there will be like a little bit of shadow, and I've kind of just tapered it in a bit to a single line when doing the rest of the mouth. The nose is usually consists of like kind of two lines next to each other. That gives it a little more variety and a little more thickness in my opinion, and it's just something that I like. Again, not something you have to do. Sometimes I will only do one line, or I will do a series of 3 lines like that. It really just depends on how I'm feeling about doing noses. On my other, on my regular non-chibi art, sometimes I will just actually do a nose. It really kind of depends on the overall feel that I want the drawing to have, but most of the time the noses that I draw kind of look like this, where I draw the nostrils and a little bit of line indicating a bridge of the nose. So that's pretty much just kind of the different ways that I ink different parts of the face. Everything else pretty much stays the same. Most of my lines here, they're just thin, singular lines that are just split up in a variety of clumps to kind of give hair variety. So I don't really know what to say about that. I do think that a lot of the look of your line art is going to specifically depend on what tools you are using. I am using Clip Studio Paint. I did use Paint Tool Sai for like a large portion of my early digital art career, so the tools in Paint Tool Sai are a little bit different. However, I think that they're similar enough in a lot of ways that, you know, these tips can be used interchangeably. Mostly when I'm doing illustration, I will use the G Pen tool here. This is pretty much standard, and it comes with when you just download Clip Studio Paint, it just already comes in it. So this is kind of what I go for here. As you can see, it's pretty smooth, pretty soft edges, and the anti-aliasing is set on strong, so it's just kind of like a softer line in general. I use that for my illustrations. When I'm actually making manga pages, I will use the real G Pen, which was something that was downloaded when I updated the Clip Studio Paint. So as you can see, it has a bit more of a rough edge, a bit more textured, and I just feel like it just really brings you into a more traditional workspace when you're doing your digital manga, so that's what I opt for. The anti-aliasing on that is set to medium, so it's not as smooth, and if it's set on full, it's still a bit more textured, but it's just not quite as like bold, I feel. So I like it kind of set on the medium anti-aliasing setting. But as you can see, my G Pen, very smooth, real G Pen, textured, and more like pen on paper-y. And that's just kind of how I pick my tools depending on the project that I am working on specifically. Either of these tools can be applied any way that you would like. These are pretty much the only pen tools that I use when it comes to line art of any kind. Pretty much everything else is just kind of used to fill in areas or change colors of something, you know, stuff like that. So basically, I pretty much just stick with the G Pen, and it works pretty well, and it has good style preference for me. So when I go to ink things, I usually focus on long swoopy movements, and I don't necessarily focus on lines connecting as much, especially in areas of the hair. I do focus a little bit more on connecting lines for ease of filling in areas on like clothing and body parts, but on hair, it doesn't really matter as much to me. So I go in long swoopy movements, and again, I'm not an expert on this stuff, and it takes me a long time to actually get lines that I'm happy with. To get the right flow in, and sometimes I'll go in and try and connect some of the areas that are a bit too open just for the sake of the paint bucket tool. That's really just my only motivation, is creating less work for myself. So it's really all very smooth, swoopy movements that mostly just kind of come from me swinging my wrist and arm around. You can't see it because this is digital art, but I'm sure you probably know what I'm talking about, where you're just kind of like, you're using the curve of your wrist to kind of get those curvy, swoopy lines. The more you focus on creating your lines perfectly, the less organic they're going to look, in my opinion. If that's what you're going for, by all means, go for it. but as someone that spent a long time focusing on having perfect lines to the point of using like stabilizers and stuff, which I do not use anymore, but I used to use stabilizers, especially in Painful SI, when I had my my non-screen tablet, my regular just graphic tablet. It took a lot longer to do the line art, and it felt very rigid, very stiff, and it really lacked a lot of life. So if you want to bring that life into your artwork, you should probably just kind of focus on really just being loose with your lines. I don't know if that makes sense. I don't really know how to explain that too much, but it's just kind of don't worry so much about your lines being perfect or all of your lines connecting. See, as you can see, like I have lines overlapping here. I have lines not connecting here, and like just kind of being sketchy and weird here. I don't stress about it. It's not something that I feel is worthy of stressing about. So, you know, you probably shouldn't stress about it either. You know, if you like that very clean, extremely digital, artificial line art look, that's totally fine, but I'm not a huge fan of that look, so that's not what I go for with my work. I do recommend also studying manga if you want yours to look more like a traditional manga, even though you're doing it digitally. I recommend looking at mangas, finding the kind of inking techniques and stuff and line weights that you like. I'm not really a huge line weight person. I think that it's cool when I'm doing actual manga pages, but as far as illustration goes, I don't really focus on that so much, and I mean, I probably don't really focus a lot on it in general. It's just not something that I super consider important, because a lot of my line weight and variety just really comes from me trying to fix lines. So if I mess up and I was like, say the line was supposed to go here, and then I accidentally put the line, well, probably not that out of whack, but like I put it over here, and like I just missed my sketch, and I really wanted it to be on that sketch line, I would just go in and fill this in, and ta-da, I have line weight there. It's really, all of my line work pretty much just comes from me being lazy and just putting in things where I think they would look nice. It's not really, I mean, a lot of people, they tell you when you're inking things to put line weight in areas that have weight, areas that gravity is specifically pulling on. I guess that's a good tip if you're looking for ideas on how to use line weight. I'm just probably not the person to ask regarding line weight because I am just not, I don't really worry about line weight too much. Especially in illustrations that are going to be colored, because, you know, honestly, no one really cares. No one's going to be looking at your line work, they're going to be looking at the colors. Manga, specifically, is probably a little bit different. People will be looking at your line work a lot more, because that is going to be the focal point of the images themselves. So that is probably something that you're going to want to focus on. But as you can see here, this is thinner than these lines, because I just went the opposite way and I connected them. These lines don't even touch. Right here, they don't touch, but they're close enough, so no one's going to notice and no one's going to care. That's pretty much. I'm really lazy, honestly, and I don't know why people think I'm a good artist. I'm so lazy. It's just, I think that in my younger years, I spent so much time trying to make sure my line work was perfect. And, you know, honestly, people didn't really care. I get more compliments on my line art now than I did then, and my line art is way messier. Mostly what I do is just focused on trying to get it done quickly. I don't like that. Is trying to get it done quickly. You know, that's my main motivation for doing the line art the way that I do it. See here, and even where it didn't quite line up and I wanted it to line up, I just go in and I thicken this line here, and the lines now touch, and there's a little bit of weight, there's a little bit of line thickness variety, and there we go. And if I don't like that bottom line, I erase it, and then ta-da, it looks intentional. It looks like I planned that, and I didn't plan that. It was just instinct. Yeah, so there's really not all that much to talk about. I don't really want to go into actually like talking about doing manga inking. This is really just kind of for illustration purposes. So I won't be like filling in any areas with ink or teaching you guys how to do any of that stuff right now. If that's something that you guys are interested in and seeing the way that I ink manga pages. I don't consider myself very good at it, but I am more than welcome. I'm more than happy? What am I saying? I'm more than happy to show you guys what it is that I do, and maybe you guys can glean some information from that, but I don't consider myself a great teacher, and I'm really just doing my best. If it's something that you're interested in, please do let me know, and I will try and create a video showing you what I do. I know that, you know, line art to a lot of people is the most boring part of the drawing, but for me is I guess it really depends on my mood, because sometimes I'm really not in the mood to do it, and sometimes I'm like really into it. I used to hate inking, but I kind of enjoy it a lot more now. So I don't actually mind doing it. But most of my line art, it just really consists of a series of long sweepy lines and then short sketchy lines kind of connecting and filling in areas that didn't really get inked before, you know, spots that I missed and stuff like that. The fact that it's soft, I don't know how to explain outside of the actual tool that I'm using. It just has a higher anti-aliasing setting, so it's just a little bit more gradually tapering off, I guess you can say. I'm not really an expert with what all the terminology means. I just know what looks nice when I do it. So, yeah, that's pretty much all of the different techniques that I use for inking. I literally use like one tool and just kind of make sure your lines just feel swoopy and organic, and make sure your computer isn't lagging like mine is right now. But yeah, so just kind of just loosen up. Don't worry about it. A lot of people worry about their line art a lot. And, you know, it's understandable because for a lot of us it is such a huge part of the artwork, you know, it's like 30% of the artwork. So a lot of people do stress about it. I just choose not to, and I guess that my line art became better for it. I don't know. But yeah, that's really all that I had to say. I don't really focus on any intentional line weight thickening. It happens the way it happens. I don't do anything special. I usually use a smaller brush size. I don't really like the thick outline look too much. Some people really like having thick outlines, and that's totally fine. I usually stick around the 4-point range, and I rarely go above that. When I'm inking the eyes, I'll usually go to like the 6-point range because it just makes it easier to fill in that area, because you're still getting the same effect, but it's just taking less time, which is like what I'm all about. I'm all about getting stuff done ASAP. But yeah, so that's pretty much all I had to say. That's how I do line art. I hope that I explained everything well, and I hope that you guys were able to learn something useful from it. If you have any other questions, or are there any other topics you would like me to do a tutorial on, please leave a comment down below and let me know what it is you would like to see. I'm trying to post more videos on YouTube, so please hit that subscribe button and ring that bell if you want to stay notified every time I post a new video. I'm really trying my best to stay active here. And all the links to my social media and like my shop and stuff, that's all in the description box down below. I'm super active on Twitter, so you guys can totally go there. I update it literally all the time, like every day. Yeah, and most of my art's there anyways. Jesus. Okay. I'm done talking for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.